Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into some pretty mind-bending stuff today. We're going to be exploring the world of hallucinogens
Whoa.
and their potential role in, get this, shaping human evolution.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Where are we starting with this?
Well, our guide for this deep dive is Terence McKenna, specifically his book, Food of the Gods.
Oh, McKenna. Always fascinating, sometimes a little out there,
Yeah?
but definitely thought-provoking.
Exactly. And one of his most well-known and controversial ideas is this concept of the stoned ape hypothesis.
Okay, I've heard of that. It's the idea that early humans, our ancestors, were influenced by, well, psychedelic mushrooms, right?
Right. So McKenna's suggesting that these early hominids, wandering the African grasslands, they came across these psilocybin mushrooms.
And hold on, these mushrooms were just growing out in the open.
Well, not exactly. They were growing in cattle dung.
Cattle dung. Okay, that's not exactly what I pictured.
I know, right? But this is where it gets interesting. McKenna argues that a specific species, Stropharia cubensis, it was like the perfect plant.
Grub place.
Yeah, like the first one that really kicked things off. It was potent, didn't make you nauseous like some other mushrooms, and it was plentiful in those cattle grazing areas.
So picture this. Our ancestors are stumbling around, they find these mushrooms, and boom, altered states of consciousness.
Exactly. And McCann suggests that this wasn't just a one-time thing. He proposes that repeated exposure to psilocybin actually changed their brains.
So it wasn't just a fun trip, it was like rewiring their neural pathways.
Exactly. And that rewiring, he suggests, could lead to the development of language, social bonding, even ritualistic behavior.
Now that's a bold claim. Is there any scientific evidence to back that up?
Well, there is some interesting neuroscience behind it. Psilocybin does activate certain areas of the brain, like the language centers and those involved in sensory processing.
I see, so it's like psilocybin turned up the volume on those brain functions, potentially accelerating their development.
That's the idea, but, not everyone's buying it.
Yeah, I imagine there's some pushback from the scientific community.
Definitely. Some researchers are open to the potential impact of psychedelics on consciousness, but many are skeptical of McKenna's claims.
Right. They might say, where's the fossil evidence? How can you actually test this hypothesis?
It's a valid point. It's a bit of an intellectual tug of war with evidence and interpretation on both sides.
So where do we go from here?
Well, even if we set aside the scientific debate for a moment, I think what's really captivating about McKenna's work is how it makes us rethink our relationship with nature.
Okay, I'm listening. How so?
McKenna argued that these early human societies, those fueled by shared psychedelic experiences, they were different. They were more egalitarian, more cooperative. He called them partnership societies.
Partnership societies.
Yeah, it's like they lived in harmony with nature, their lives intertwined with the rhythms of the earth, the seasons.
Sounds idyllic.
Mm-hmm.
But something changed, right?
According to McKenna, yes. These partnership societies gave way to something else.
What, like a darker turn?
Well, he calls them dominator cultures. More hierarchical, control-oriented, focused on conquest.
So a shift from harmony to, well, dominance.
Yeah. And McKenna suggests that this shift happened alongside the suppression of psychedelic experiences, the suppression of the feminine principle.
Interesting. Turning away from the intuitive, the mystical.
Exactly. It's like a collective forgetting of our ancient connection to nature, to the potential of altered states of consciousness, a cultural amnesia.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. We've got the stoned ape hypothesis, this shift from partnership to dominator cultures, and this idea of a forgotten past. But where do we go from here? How do we unravel this?
Well, McKenna believed that clues to this forgotten past, they're hidden in plain sight.
Hidden in plain sight. I'm even more intrigued now.
They're encoded in the myths, the rituals, the sacred texts of ancient cultures. He points to examples like the Soma of the Vedas, the Eleusinian mysteries of ancient Greece.
Okay, we're about to get into some really fascinating territory.
We are, and we'll delve into those mysteries next time when we continue this deep dive.
Yeah, so McKenna, he pointed to like these ancient traditions and rituals as clues, like these remnants of a time when humans had a different relationship with, well, the natural world.
Right, like it wasn't just about survival, it was a deeper connection.
Yeah, and often through the use of these psychoactive plants. He talks about soma.
Soma.
Yeah.
Now that's a mystery I've always been curious about. It's mentioned all over in the Rig Veda, right?
Yeah, one of Hinduism's oldest texts. It's filled with these hymns dedicated to soma. They describe it as this divine plant, a source of immortality, even like a god itself.
But we don't actually know what it is, right? It's still a mystery.
Exactly. Its botanical identity is still up for debate. Some scholars suggest it could have been ephedra.
That's a plant with stimulant properties.
Right, others point to Amanita muscaria,
The classic red and white
the
mushroom.
one you see in all the fairy tales.
But McKenna wasn't convinced by the Amanita theory, right?
He argues that the effects don't really line up with how Soma is described in the Vedas.
And plus, Amanita muscaria, while it does have psychoactive properties, it can also be pretty toxic.
Yeah, doesn't really fit with the reverence surrounding Soma.
Okay, so if not Amanita muscaria, what did McKenna think Soma actually was?
He believed it was originally Stropharia cubensis.
Wait, the same psilocybin mushroom we talked about earlier?
Exactly. It all ties back into his theory that this specific mushroom played like a key role in shaping human consciousness.
Okay, I can see how it fits into the bigger picture. But if Soma was just this common mushroom, why all the secrecy?
Well, McKenna suggests that as the Indo-Europeans migrated east, the climate changed, Stropharia cubensis became scarce.
So they had to find substitutes.
Exactly, and that probably led to a lot of confusion and, conflicting descriptions in later texts. It's like a game and telephone.
Yeah, I get it. The message gets distorted over time.
And this idea of distorted messages or lost knowledge, it kind of leads us to another mystery. The Eleusinian mysteries of ancient Greece.
Oh, yeah, those were super secretive, right?
Extremely initiates were sworn to silence about the rituals.
Mm.
What we do know is that they involved drinking this special potion called kaikion and having these profound visions and revelations.
Sounds intense. Another mystery drink. What was in it?
Well, some historians say it was just grape juice.
Just grape juice.
Really? But McKenna believed psilocybin mushrooms were involved.
Because of the visions.
Yeah, he saw similarities between the Eleusinian visions and, modern accounts of psilocybin experiences.
Because there are other theories too, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. One prominent theory suggests that kaikion contained ergot.
Ergot. That's a fungus that grows on grains, right?
Yeah, like rye and barley.
And it has psychoactive compounds. But isn't it also pretty dangerous?
It can be, yeah. Quite toxic.
It seems risky to include that in a sacred ritual.
You think so, right? But there's no evidence of widespread illness or death associated with the mysteries.
So maybe they had a way to prepare it safely.
It's possible. Maybe they knew how to minimize the risks.
Or maybe it wasn't ergot at all. Maybe it was something else entirely. We might never know for sure.
That's part of what makes these ancient mysteries so fascinating, right? They still have this power over our imaginations.
Totally. And it speaks to this human fascination with altered states of consciousness.
Right, like we're drawn to these experiences that take us beyond our everyday reality.
And McKenna saw these ancient practices not just as superstition, but as remnants of a time when humans had a more direct relationship with the mysteries of the natural world.
Like they had a different way of knowing, a different way of experiencing reality.
And he argues that we've lost touch with that ancient wisdom, that capacity for awe and wonder.
Yeah, and that we need to reclaim it, not by, blindly replicating these rituals, but by re-examining our relationship with these powerful substances and the experiences they offer. He went as far as to say that we should explore the potential of DMT.
DMT. Now we're talking about some seriously potent stuff. That's like a whole other level, isn't it?
It is. DMT is in a league of its own.
Mm-hmm.
It can induce these incredibly intense, immersive experiences that often feel, otherworldly.
Otherworldly, like what kind of experiences are we talking about?
McKenna described his own encounters with DMT as like visiting other dimensions, encountering intelligent entities, even glimpsing the source code of reality.
Whoa. Okay, now that sounds like something straight out of science fiction. Some people might even find that a little unsettling.
Yeah, it's definitely not for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But McKenna believed that DMT offered a glimpse into a realm of consciousness that science hasn't fully grasped yet. A realm with profound insights into the nature of reality and our place in it.
It's a lot to wrap your head around for sure. McKenna's work is full of these grand sweeping ideas about consciousness, culture, our connection to the universe. But let's bring it back down to earth for a moment. If his theories hold any weight, what does all of this mean for us today?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Mm.
McKenna challenged us to reevaluate our relationship with altered states of consciousness. He argued that psychedelics used responsibly and intentionally could help us reclaim that lost connection to nature, to each other, to the mystery of existence. He called it tapping into the Gaian mind.
The Gaian mind, that interconnected intelligence of the planet. It's a beautiful concept, but it also feels very mystical, almost spiritual. How does that resonate with you personally?
For me, it speaks to the power of these experiences to shift our perspectives and open us up to new ways of seeing the world. Whether you interpret it literally as a planetary consciousness or simply as a metaphor for the interconnectedness of all things, I think there's something profound in that.
But we can't ignore the elephant in the room. These substances are illegal in most of the world, surrounded by fear and stigma. And honestly, some of the experiences we're talking about can be intense, even overwhelming. How do we even approach this responsibly?
McKenna believed we need a new kind of dialogue around psychedelics, one that moves beyond the fear-mongering and misinformation. He envisioned a future where these substances could be explored in safe, supportive settings with proper guidance and integration. Not reckless experimentation, but a mindful and respectful approach.
It's more like a carefully guided expedition into these uncharted territories of consciousness.
Exactly. Treat these substances and the experiences they evoke with reverence and responsibility. They are powerful tools that demand our utmost care and attention.
It sounds like McKenna was calling for a radical shift in how we view these substances and their potential role in our lives. But even if we were open to that, wouldn't there still be enormous challenges? I mean, there are reasons why these substances are illegal, right?
Of course, there are valid concerns. But McKenna argued that our current legal framework is based more on fear than on a nuanced understanding of the potential benefits and risks. He believed the war on drugs has failed criminalizing individuals while failing to address the root causes of addiction and substance abuse.
So he's advocating for a complete overhaul of our drug policies. That's a pretty tall order.
It is. But what I find so compelling about McKenna's work is that he encourages us to question our assumptions. He forces us to confront these complex issues head-on, to look beyond the easy answers, and engage in a more nuanced and informed conversation.
And that's what this deep dive has been all about, encouraging you to think critically and draw your own conclusions. We've just scratched the surface of McKenna's ideas here. Food of the Gods goes into far more depth on all of these topics. And remember, we're just two voices in a vast conversation. So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep an open mind.
Well said. You never know what you might discover.